if you recall, and I know you do, after the 2020 election, Trump and his campaign, they filed 62 lawsuits claiming the election had been stolen. One of those lawsuits ended with Trump's team winning 3 days for Pennsylvania voters to cure ballots that weren't counted. But the other 61 lawsuits, well, they failed miserably. This newly released recording, Stone isn't just trying to relitigate those failures and claim that the 2020 election was rigged. No, he isn't even just saying that he expects the 2024 election to be, quote unquote, rigged. He is also saying that the Republican effort to take those false claims to court will be much bigger and better run this time around, particularly now that Trump's daughter-in-law, Lara Trump, controls the RNC.
We showed it half a dozen places. And they really profound and now on offensive footing. Remember, the Republican National Committee raised $200 million and they didn't spend any of it to try to get cleaner elections. They were looking at what happened last time. They now finally have control of their mechanism. Don't be discouraged.
So they're going to spend, the RNC is going to spend more money now than Lara.
Far more.
When reached for comment by the Rolling Stone, Stone downplayed the statements he made in those recordings, saying that, quote, all of the election integrity provisions he mentioned are perfectly legal. But that's not exactly a denial that these bad faith election challenges are indeed coming. And with a misinformation ecosystem that is primed for exactly this kind of stuff, how do we protect our democracy? During the 2020 election, former Obama White House counsel Bob Bauer helped lead the Biden campaign's response to Trump's barrage of bad faith election lawsuits. This week, Bauer is out with a brand new book that tackles these very issues. It's called The Unraveling: Reflections on Politics Without Ethics and Democracy in Crisis. In it, Bauer examines the line between hard-nosed political combat and a politics devoid of ethics. Quote, political actors bear responsibility to demonstrate in the choices they make that politics can and should be an honorable and ethical calling. Good politics can be played hard and passionately, but also with respect for the limits beyond which it cannot ethically go. Not all the limits are clear. Not everyone agrees on the limits. However, there has to be agreement that there are limits of some kind, and that political actors are accountable for honestly confronting choices and accepting responsibility for those they make. Joining me now, Bob Bauer, President Biden's personal attorney, former White House counsel in the Obama administration. Again, his new book, The Unraveling: Reflections on Politics Without Ethics and Democracy in Crisis. Bob, what a title. Congratulations on the book. Thank you so much for being here. I'm struck by the fact that in the book you describe yourself as having a warrior mentality, but you also question whether winning at all costs is worth it. I wonder how you walk the fine line between those poles when you know that the other side, they're not afraid to go low.
Not a partisan issue. It's a bipartisan question of what kind of politics we're going to have in this country, whether it's going to be a true small d democratic politics or it's going to be a politics which I call an anti-politics that treats an adversary as an adversary not to be defeated, but an enemy to be destroyed, that treats the law as something to be basically shunted to one side or misused to hound or harass political opponents. Or, as you pointed out in your opening, where there's absolutely no limit on the lies that are peddled to voters, no responsibility on the part of those who write the ads or cover the ads to really police them for some measure of honesty and fairness to the voters. And a politics without ethics is not a democratic politics. Now, to the question that you asked, I want to stress this. I reject the premise that, and I think I and others in Democratic campaigns have done this for quite some time, I reject the premise that you can't compete hard, that you can't be strong in your convictions, you can't be vigorous in your campaigns, and at the same time run them ethically and win. You can win. I was with the Obama campaign in 2008. The president won. President Obama won. I was with the re-election campaign of President Obama in 2012. He won. President Biden in 2020. He won. So victory is possible, but the overall effect, corrosive effect of a politics without ethics, irresponsible behavior by those who have those choices to make in government and politics is something we have to be deeply concerned about, and that is an issue for Democrats as well as Republicans.
Bob, understanding that past is prologue, I want to talk a little bit about 2020 and then how it applies to what you're looking for in 2024. So Summer 2020, you outlined a multi-step strategy in the summer in anticipation of Trump questioning the results of the November election. I wonder when you realized you were actually going to need to execute on this plan.
Well, remember that former President Trump made no bones about his belief that he couldn't possibly lose an honest election. Any election he lost would be a rigged election. As a matter of fact, he even claimed that he hadn't lost to Ted Cruz in the Iowa caucuses, so there was something fishy about that election as well. And so he flagged that, as did others in his campaign circle, and a lot of energy and effort went into thinking through what sort of steps they might take to challenge the election, what steps they might take to undermine the process beforehand or to challenge the process after. And I write in my book about how much effort went into identifying any conceivable challenge. By the way, thousands of lawyer hours, thousands of pages of memos. Not all of it came to pass. But having said that, there were threats that we anticipated. They did come to pass. And as you point out in your introduction, Trump and his campaign did not succeed at all.
So, as you just laid out, 2020, Trump is already setting the groundwork for the fact that this was a possibility. He is doing the same thing again this time around, already saying that he'll call into question the results of the 2024 election. It is interesting that you and I are talking tonight because as we come on the air, there's a new Fox News national poll that actually shows President Biden leading Trump 50% to 48% nationally among registered voters, which is notable because I think that's the first time we have seen that in this poll this cycle. Do you believe that Team Biden is prepared for the novel ways, right? The new ways that Team Trump has imagined once again subverting democracy? Well,
I recount in the book how we prepared in 2020, and it was exhaustive. And I can say the preparations are just as exhaustive, if not more so, this time around. And the effort here, I want to be very clear, the effort here is not just to prepare to protect to win, it's to prepare to protect a process. And I will say at the same time that I'm involved in this campaign, and I am very involved in the campaign, I also work with Republicans on initiatives that are meant to be bipartisan to support our election officials in the conduct of elections. That's where the partisan politics has to stop. It has to stop at the point at which we're attacking the process that we all depend upon for the fulfillment of the democratic process, for the fulfillment of democratic, will, yes.
Forgive me, Bob. In as much as you are clear about the fact that this is a bipartisan challenge, you're also clear about the fact that when we talk about Republicans, this is bigger than Donald Trump, right? You fault Republicans in the Senate for what you call an egregious offense against norms when they ignored President Obama's nomination of Merrick Garland to the Supreme Court. You also note that, quote, when another election year vacancy developed upon the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the Senate Republicans decided to rush the nomination of Amy Coney Barrett ahead of voter choice, only months off. The argument Republicans had advanced in 2016 somehow lost its force for them in 2020 when the nomination was theirs to make and the seat was theirs to fill. How corrosive was that specific breach in ethics?
In my view, this is the kind of step taken just to win, to push through a result because you can push through that result, that added together with all the other actions of that kind that are taken really does have a long-term undermining effect, not just on the way the process should operate, but on the public's confidence in the process. The public loses faith that politics is an honorable calling and that at some point in seeking their favor, seeking their vote in a campaign, there is a limit. There is a limit to what responsible political actors will do. In the same way that they have to hope that in trying to enact public policies, there's a limit to what people in government will do to win a policy debate. There have to be those limits. I'm convinced, by the way, that victory is possible while adhering to those limits. But now the public's confidence that that's true has been shaken.
Bob, you write in The Unraveling about a moment after January 6th where you thought, quote, democratic life will get back to normal. That seems very quaint now. I'm sure you will agree nothing feels normal. We're in the middle of what we keep calling the most consequential election of our lifetime. I just wonder 5 months out what it is that keeps you up at night.
you have to worry about everything. We are living through a period of very polarized politics in which we have seen a lot of ethical compunctions fall away, norms challenged, not just norms challenged, literally repudiated in principle. And I do believe, however, if I can just strike an optimistic note, having traveled around the country and spoken to election officials and community leaders, both Democratic and Republican, that yes, there is a wing of the Republican Party that Donald Trump commands that is prepared to repudiate those norms, prepared to challenge elections, prepared to say that the system is irredeemably corrupt. But there are others, some of them quiet, who think, even if they will vote for Republicans, that we have to defend the democratic process and that there is a form of democratic politics that is ethical and respectful of the voters and respectful of democratic traditions and norms. I've heard that from Republicans, and I believe that there is a large number, whether they're Republicans, Independents, Democrats, more than a majority that wants to stand up and defend the democratic process in the United States. So as much as I worry at night, because you've asked me what I worry about, and it's a fair amount, I have confidence that ultimately, as I had confidence in 2020, that we're going to see the country, the voters, stand up for the process that's currently under such severe attack.
Bob, that optimism that you shared is in high demand and short supply, so thank you for ending us there. President Biden's personal attorney, former White House counsel in the Obama administration, and the author of the brand new book, The Unraveling: Reflections on Politics Without Ethics and Democracy in Crisis. Thank you so much, Bob.